I love doing the character chart series. And unsurprisingly, my favorite part is the characters. Analyzing motive and actions, morals, and more. But the problem with the series is that I can only do 9 characters. And they all need to be kind of different. I need to choose one character who's popular and represents the spot I put him in. However, this leads to me not discussing many interesting characters, such as Terrence, Gavin, Zeke, and Doc. All these characters have interesting aspects to the story that I would love to discuss, but they don't have enough screen time, or their spot of the character chart is already filled by someone who's more important. However, before moving on to a new character chart series next week, I wanted to talk about one last character. A character that we know next to nothing about, but has still played a critical role in the series so far. I am talking about the Headmaster of Wellston himself, Headmaster Vaughn. And yes, I looked up his name, and I'm pretty sure it's Vaughn. We're first introduced to Vaughn when Elaine snitches on Serafina, a moment that no one will forgive Elaine for. Anyways, just think of what a headmaster is like that leads a school like Wellston. A school that is constantly beating each other up. A school that didn't promote people kidnapping a cripple and beating them up, but it happened twice, so it's probably not a coincidence anymore. You just know that Wellston is a very dangerous school to be in. So imagine what the headmaster of a school like that is. And now throw it out the window, because Headmaster Vaughn is nothing like that. Our first introduction of him is, well, he's a lot more, really sweet and nice. Our first shot of him is authoritarian and serious. But during his talk with Serafina, he shows how he actually is. Oh, come on now. Don't look so tense. You're even making me nervous. Don't worry, you'll be out of here in no time. Does that sound like the headmaster of a violent and terrifying school like Wellston? The answer is no. Vaughn is kind to his students, even when they're in serious trouble. Serafina got caught reading a banned book. A book that is shown to cause people to believe in fighting for equality and to turn those people into vigilantes and get those vigilantes killed. So of course Headmaster Vaughn is worried about his students. And Ember. We see that Headmaster Vaughn and Keen discuss the Ember threat and how it's affecting the students and Wellston's security. When talking about Ray's death, he goes on, saying, "This incident got me thinking. Even though the murder victims have all been vigilantes, it doesn't change the fact that they're all high tiers. Wellston Private High School has the highest concentration of high tiers in the area, so we should take caution. I want you, as head of security, to carefully monitor every person who enters the school until this whole Ember nonsense is over. I'll tell the rest of the staff to keep their eyes open as well. And another thing. I'm sure you've already heard about the reason behind Serafina's suspension. With her and Ray, that's already 2 cases related to Unordinary that are linked to Wellston. I have a feeling that the authorities will want to keep an eye on us from now on. If you sense any spies roaming around the campus, flush them out and bring them to me for questioning. I don't want authorities messing in my business." From this very long quote, we can get a couple things. First is how he wants the school to be protected. He wants the students, the faculty, the school itself to be protected. He's a protector. That's what he's in charge of, right? But what's more important to me and interesting is the second part of his speech, where he actively doesn't want spies and authorities messing with his business. Now, while actually important to the story, I haven't really mentioned the authorities too much. Only in Remy's video and a video on Ember. But to sum up the Ember video, I talked about who Ember could be related to, or connected to, going over Zeta Psi, just normal criminal syndicates, and eventually landing on that Ember has some connection to the authorities. Now, whether that theory is correct or not doesn't matter. But what is important is how distrusting Headmaster Vaughn is, especially towards the authorities. And we get this distrust with Keon. Keon is another character that I would love to discuss, but to put it plain and simple, Keon is like a guidance counselor that doesn't like kids. Whatever he is, Keon helps kids that are being especially difficult with his readjustment classes. We all know what those readjustment classes are, but you don't have to look at it too long to realize they're not good for a student. After Serafina returns from her home, she's questioned by Keon. Eventually he gets loud and unprofessional. Then surprisingly, Headmaster Vaughn interrupts. Mr. Keon, you're supposed to be a professional. I will not tolerate this kind of behavior. You will speak to my students with respect. Headmaster Vaughn strangely respects his students, even when they're beating each other up. But he still respects them enough to let them decide and fix things on their own accord, giving them responsibility. Later, when Keon suggests those lovely readjustment classes, Headmaster Vaughn denies it. Serafina just lost her ability, to which him is enough punishment. I do not believe I'm being unreasonable, but if you or one of your superiors would like to challenge me, please feel free to do so. Headmaster Vaughn then sits in on Keon and John's chat, adding little things into the conversation, but the main thing is right here, right before John and Keon shake hands. Headmaster Vaughn notices that John's hand starts to shake out of fear. We even get to see John's breakdown behind the door. It's a good thing that the headmaster doesn't have a secretary. Headmaster Vaughn and Keon start arguing about suspending John in the Book of Unordinary. I always wondered why John was so ashamed of his own talents, but after observing his demeanor around you, I now finally understand. He was one of your students, wasn't he? Interesting. A few weeks ago, you wanted to enroll Serafina into one of these classes as well? No, you can forget about it. I've made myself clear. Headmaster Vaughn's plan and thought process is a mystery to everyone. The reader and even characters that are supposed to be astute and analytical, like Keon. There's no doubt something suspicious is going on in Wellston. Vaughn, I don't know what you're planning, but if you anger the authorities, you'll regret it. That is the question of the day. What is Headmaster Vaughn planning? Really, it's a mystery to everyone, so let's theorize a little. Headmaster Vaughn, like I said before, doesn't like to micromanage. He gives all the students responsibility and power to choose what they want to do. If you will, please notice something. For many people, it would seem like the school doesn't care at all that these kids are beating the crap out of each other and even blowing up parts of the school. But if they didn't care, why would they have a trained doctor with special treatments to heal them in hours? It's not that they don't care, it's more that they're giving the kids responsibility. They could stop these fights. In fact, Doc himself has stopped a couple fights. But it's more because he doesn't want to work overtime. These teachers, or perhaps just Headmaster Vaughn, realize that forcing these kids into following direct orders and rules wouldn't help them. It wouldn't let these kids grow or develop. Something weird I noticed is that unlike shows or movies with a similar premise, like My Hero Academia or Sky High, these kids don't have a class for powers. They don't have a class that trains them in their powers, or teaches them the responsibility of those powers. So Headmaster Vaughn opted for a different approach. Let these kids learn about their powers and abilities and the responsibilities of those on their own. Give them the responsibility to learn and develop it alone and with others. But that's the main question. Why? Why would he want that to happen? Why would he push for that? Is it to pay more respect to the hierarchy? So everyone learns the natural order and their natural place? No, I actually don't think that's the case. In fact, I think it's the opposite. I think that Headmaster Vaughn wants these students to abandon the hierarchy. First of all, the freedom he gives his students instead of telling them what to do. Giving them an absolute amount of freedom to do whatever they want. Sure, this could be his way of letting them continue the hierarchy. But it could be a way to make them realize how unreliable and painful a hierarchy is for these students. Following people solely based on how strong they are won't lead to anything good. This is a much better way for people to change their minds. Let them learn it themselves. You know the saying that if a child touches a stove and burns themselves, then they won't touch it again? It's a similar strategy here. Headmaster Vaughn is trying to get these kids burnt. Figuratively, mind you. He just wants them to realize how crappy this system is and make these kids want to change it. But that's kind of the problem. Like grandparents set in their way, they don't want to change. The elite and high tiers don't see a need to change. They're the ones in charge. They control the school. They have power and authority. While the lower tier students want to change the system, but they have difficulty getting their opinion out there. We see this multiple times. When John gets forcefully taken into an interview by Eisen, he wants to talk about change, while Eisen couldn't care less. And even with the more recent faux Jokers, putting on the Joker mask gives these students a chance to fight back, gives them a chance to stick up for themselves when they never had the opportunity before. Which leads into Headmaster's plan with John. At the beginning of Season 2, Headmaster Vaughn is warning John not to do what he just did again, giving him one final warning, in which Head of Security Keen says, "Sir, I understand you want to give every student a chance to think for themselves, but John's behavior is getting increasingly concerning. Remember, he's a late bloomer. He doesn't see things the way we do." To which Headmaster Vaughn replies, "Yes, and that's precisely why this school needs someone like him." Why does he need John? The key word here is perspective. John is a late bloomer. He's been at the very bottom and he's been at the very top. He's seen the injustices and the mistreatments that the low tiers have to suffer, and he's seen the advantages and powers of those at the top. He's seen both sides of the story when most people have only lived one. Since John doesn't see things the way they see it, since John is a late bloomer, he can change the school, which is what Headmaster Vaughn is counting on. He's already kind of started to change the school. Low tiers now feel like they have some power, but also Remy now sees the problems that low tiers are facing because of John. John is changing the school in ways he didn't account for, and I think that's what Headmaster Vaughn is betting on. But what do you think? Am I crazy here, or do you agree with me? Do you have a theory that makes more sense? If so, leave it in the comments below. Also, like I said at the beginning, I'm starting a new character chart series next week, so I want to see your guesses below. But like always, thank you for watching.